action painting, direct, instinctual, and highly dynamic kind of art that involves the spontaneous application of vigorous sweeping brushstrokes and the chance effects of dripping and spilling paint onto the canvas. The term was coined by the American art critic Harold Rosenberg to characterize the work of a group of American abstract expressionists who utilized the method from about 1950. Action painting is distinguished from the carefully preconceived work of the abstract images and color-filled painters, which constitutes the other major direction implicit in abstract expressionism and resembles action painting only in its absolute devotion to unfettered personal expression free from all the traditional aesthetic and social values. The canvas began to appear as an arena in which to act. What was to go on the canvas was not a picture but an event. He believed that the action painters worked almost without regard for conventional standards of beauty. Their achievement was an authentic expression of individuality and humanity. Rosenberg saw abstract expressionism as a major rupture within the history of modern art. The act of painting itself, as the moment of the artist's creative interaction with his materials, was as important as the finished work in action painting. Jackson Pollock's abstract grip paintings began in 1947, paved the way for the bolder gestural techniques that distinguish action painting. De Kooning's Woman series, which began in the early 1950s, successfully evolved a richly emotive, expressive style. Do you see the distinctions between this and the Pollock-style action painting? This painting depicts an abstract vision of a woman, whereas the Pollock style is more about lines and colors created by aggressive paint application, with no discernible subject matter. Despite the fact that you can see a familiar subject in the de Kooning, its heavily abstract composition and expressive brushstrokes classify it as an action painting. Recognizable composition, identifiable content, and recognizable themes are all features of an action painting with abstract lines and colors.
The Navajo are a group of Native Americans who lives in southwest of the United States. The majority of Navajo people now live in New Mexico and Arizona. Traditionally, the Navajo were primarily hunters and gatherers. Corns, beans, and squash are among the crops grown by the tribe. Sand paintings or dry paintings are the foundation of many of the most important symbols in Navajo culture. The Navajo people use sand paintings as part of a very sacred religious ceremony. The shaman of the tribe paints the sacred works by letting colorful sand fall off carefully through his fingers onto the ground, creating holy symbols and holy figures that are believed to heal. When the sand painting is finished, a person who is ill or has a problem is asked to sit on it while medicine man recites healing chants. Willem de Kooning is an American painter of Dutch ancestry who was a leading exponent of abstract expressionism, particularly the form known as action painting. During the 1930s and 1940s, de Kooning worked in both figurative and abstract modes. By the 1945, these two tendencies appeared to merge. With its violent imagery and impulsive, energetic techniques, the series Woman 1-4 created Grit Steer. This later work exhibit an increasing interest in landscape. The excavation painting exemplifies the artist's innovative style of expressive brushwork and distinctive organization of space into loose, sliding planes with open contours. Jackson Pollock, American painter who was a leading exponent of abstract expressionism, one of his artwork is the number 1, Lavender Mist, embodies the artistic breakthrough Pollock reached between 1947 and 1950. It was painted in an old barn-turned studio next to a small house on the East End and Long Island, where Pollock lived and worked from 1945 on. Jose Joya was a Filipino painter best known for his abstract expressionist work, in which he used a variety of techniques such as controlled drifts, impasto stroke, and transparent layering. The artist is concentrating his needs for communicating by creating an artwork. The artist has said of his practice, he is driven by an insatiable desire to achieve the level of spiritual fulfillment to project who he is and what he believes through his works. Jose Joya's artworks are Karate, Makiling, Maranao, and the Granadine Arabesque, a horizontal abstract painting which showcases different shades of yellows and feature broad strokes and swipes to emboss mixed with sand. It is a masterful execution of texture and composition, an embodiment of Joya's talent as a mixed media artist and a pioneer of modern arts in the Philippines.
Emmett Newman and Clifford Steele pioneered color-filled painting in 1940. Color-filled painting is a type of abstract painting in which, despite the fact that it appears to be just a smudge of paint on a canvas, the outcome is carefully planned. Back in the 1940s, this type of art was used to create a modern. The flatness of the canvas that it is pertaining to is what makes it special for me. Marco was an American abstract painter who is a painting genius. He was also known for his color-filled paintings, and his work in this genre is still recognized today.
The institutional theory of art is a view of the nature of art that holds that an object can only become art in the context of the institution known as the art world. When George Dickey suggested that an object could become legitimized as art if it was recognized as such by art institutions, his institutional theory of art refuted the idea that art had an essential ontology. Art was relative, contingent, and reliant on the availability of institutional space. And according to Danto's institutional definition of art, he defines art as whatever art school, museums, and artists consider to be art, regardless of any further formal definition. He said that to see something as art requires something the eye cannot describe, an atmosphere of artistic theory, a knowledge of the history of art is an art world. Artists, art critics, art historians, and even art museums, schools, and so on hold positions of the power in the art world. An art, to be something, to become an art, is similar to becoming a dentist, in that you must meet all the standards set by school as an institution, or similar to becoming a member of the Catholic Church. You must go through all the stages set by the church as an institution, because everything in this world must go through a process.
To be recognized as an artist by the art world institution, a person must have skills and talent, must be studying in art school, must have a degree in fine arts, must be a member of an art organization, must win recognitions, prizes, and awards, must have artworks exhibited in museums and art galleries, must be mentioned in books, media, and art history, must be well known, must have a revolutionized art, and please check modifications if valid. Everyone involved in producing, commissioning, presenting, preserving, promoting, chronicling, criticizing, buying, and selling fine art is included in the art world. It is widely acknowledged that there are several art worlds, each defined by geography or different perspectives of fine art. Some may use the phrase single art world to refer to only the top tier of international fine art. History time. So art world is not a 20th century term. It can be found in 19th century periodicals. Many features such as galleries, critics, and museums, as well as the term fine arts, can be traced back to the 18th century. When the art world recognizes something as art, it becomes art. That is, if a person is exposed to or has some knowledge of art, a simple shape or color can become an awesome artwork. Because some people enjoy art while others do not. So, non-presentational art and abstract art are frequently used interchangeably, but the two are not interchangeable. Non-presentational art is art that does not reflect or depict a person, place, or a thing. So Piet Mondrian, a Dutch painter, is a perfect example of a non-presentational artist, and most people look to his work when defining this style. Mondrian's work was labeled Neoplasticism, and he was a leader in the stage, a distinct Dutch complete abstraction movement. So Marcel Duchamp, or also known as Duchamp, along with Pablo Picasso and Henri Matisse, was a French-American painter, sculptor, chess player, and writer whose work is associated with Cubism, Dada, and conceptual art. Duchamp is widely regarded as one of the three artists who helped to define the revolutionary developments in the plastic arts in the early decades of the 20th century. Responsible for significant developments in painting and sculpture, Duchamp had a huge influence on art in the 20th and 21st centuries, and he was a key figure in the creation of conceptual art. Duchamp contributed a regular piece of plumbing to the inaugural show of the Society of Independent Artists, which was held at New York's Grand Central Palace. Duchamp described his ready-made sculptures as common things exalted to the dignity of a work of art by the artist's act of choice. In Duchamp's presentation, the urinal's orientation was changed from its regular position. So, the Mona Lisa is an Italian artist, Leonardo da Vinci's half-length portrait painting. It has been called the best known and the most visited, the most written about, the most sung about, the most parodied work of art in the world.
Medio Cruz, born in the Philippines in 1973, is a post-war and contemporary artist and activist. He frequently exhibits provocative and political works on social structures, sparking debate and controversies. Cruz made headlines in 2011 when his exhibition honoring Rizal's 150th birthday at the Cultural Center of the Philippines enraged religious individuals, groups, and institutions. Politeísmo, his body of work, included the wooden cross with a protruding penis, a statue of Jesus Christ with Mickey Mouse ears, and a wall collage of Christ and other prominent figures. His work was criticized by then-President Benigno S. Aquino III, who called it offensive to the country's Catholic majority. The installation was vandalized, and a couple attempted to burn it down. Meanwhile, Cruz has received death threats as a result of his work. The exhibition was closed in August 2011 for the aforementioned reasons. However, it was revealed that both President Aquino and former First Lady Imelda Marcos had filed an appeal against the artwork. Cruz stated that it was a violation of free expression. Cruz is a recipient of the Cultural Center of the Philippines 14 Artist Award in 2003 and the Ateneo Art Awards in 2006.
Carlo J. Caparas, a comic strip creator, writer, turned director and producer, was born in Pampanga. He is the best known for creating Filipino superheroes and comic book characters such as Panday, Toto Bato, Joaquin Bordado, Elias Paniki, Gagambino, and others. President Arroyo named him the National Artist of the Philippines for Visual Art and Film in 2009. His point of view was to inspire Filipino artists to be far greater than what they are capable of doing right now, with the goal of revitalizing the Philippines comics and film industries.
Cruz Picasso was a Spanish painter, sculptor, printmaker, simmerist, and theater designer who lived in France for the majority of his adult life. Picasso, widely regarded as the most influential artist of the 20th century, demonstrated exceptional artistic talent in his early years, painting in a naturalistic style throughout his childhood and adolescence. Art is a type of art consists of three-dimensional works that are often site-specific and intended to change people's perception of a space. Generally, the term refers to interior spaces where areas exterior, Interventions are often referred to as a public art, land art, or art intervention. However, the definition of these terms overlap. Installation art can be both temporary and permanent in nature. Installation artworks have been created in public and private natures. Installation artworks have been created in public and private spaces as well exhibition spaces such as museums and galleries. NAVAJO is a avant-garde artist whose trademark is roughing buildings and landmarks in fabric. He was married to Jean Claude, a married couple who created environmental works of art such as craft cans and bottles in 1972, Rough Women in 1968, and The Running Fence. Running Fence was an installation art piece by Cristo and Jean Claude, which was completed on September 10, 1976. The art installation was first conceived in 1972, but the actual project took more than 4 years to plan and build. After it was installed, the builders removed it 14 days later. It was located in Northern California, United States. 5.5 meters height, 40 kilometers long, and 2,152,780 square feet of nylon fabric hung from a steel cable string between 2,050 steel poles secured by 350,000 hooks. It was the longest installation art. Fernando C. Amorsolo was the first Philippine national artist. The title Grand Old Man of the Philippine Art was bestowed upon Amorsolo when the Manila Hilton opened its art center on January 23, 1969. With an exhibition of a selection of his works in the 1920s, after returning from the studies from abroad, Amorsolo developed the black lighting technique that became his trademark, in which figure a cluster of leaves, spill of hair, and the swell of breast are seen aglow on a canvas. Amorsolo, also the first Filipino impressionist, the master of scenery, he also the most popular painter in the country, and he made more than 10,000 paintings and won the first prize in New York Fair in 1939.
Action theory. As I already shared all my research about this theory, I reached the conclusion that action theory is a work of art with the freedom of the artist to express his painting free from the usual classifications of art. In action theory, the art there is the action that has been going on the canvas. It is the part where the artist is literally becomes a part of the art. Institutional theory. According to what I have understood to the institutional theory of art, an object can only become an art in the setting of the institution known as the art world. In other words, this certain object, whatever form it is a work of art because the art world or the institution of art says so.
Action theory simply means that the emotion or spiritual content of an artwork is as crucial as the image. So the artists are in effect authorized to distort, even destroyed images to express intensified emotions or spirit. Abstract expressionism is technically art that achieves through abstraction.
According to my understanding of action theory, it is a method by which an artist expresses his or her feelings and emotions in art by spilling or dripping them on the canvas. I believe it is more than just a smear on the canvas. It is art for them that expresses or represents something. Then institutional theory is something you should take one step at a time to accomplish your main goal. Because in real life, you will not achieve something unless you work hard for it. And remember this one, if it is easy, you are doing it incorrectly.
Based on my understanding about institutional theory in art is an art that someone has made will be known once it becomes part of a museum, galleries, auction houses, and private collections. An art is not about how pretty to the artist. An art is about how people feels the emotion that showing on the painting. It is not about animals or shapes, but it is about how the viewer understands when the artist wants to say. And an action theory involves how painters stroke their brushes, spill paints on their canvas, and how they carefully do their works while doing painting. In short, This theory is being the moment of the artist's creative interaction with their materials was as significant as the finished work.
Action theory, in my understanding, is a conversation between the artist and the canvas. Splashing, dripping, and pouring paint on the canvas is highly instinctual and to a point spontaneous. It is free from the expectations of traditional art. It is highly creative and expressional. The action of painting is more important than the finished artwork. This method elicits emotions and feelings from our mere perceptions. In this, art is seen as an institution in the world. Artworks and artists are only recognized in the context of the guidelines set by the art world. The art world has the authority to dictate what is art. In my understanding, institutionalizing art is a way to classify whether a particular work is considered as an artwork. However, it comes with drawbacks. The standards of the art world are set to only include the powerful and the privileged. Art becomes limited to formally educated individuals, and this can be an issue of elitism. Disadvantaged and marginalized groups are excluded from the framework. Dictating what is and is not art is also highly subjective. The subjectivity, in my opinion, makes the institutional theory highly limiting.
My understanding in action theory, it is the artist's expressions and emotions put into the art that he or she is making. It is also a way to connect with people who will see the art and how they express their emotion through it. In my understanding, institutional theory, based on my understanding, institutional theory is how the artists see the art world and how will they go with the changes in the art world, and how to continue working on their own artworks, or how will they find their new art styles.
Action theory, it is the artist's behavior and emotions in his artworks, and it is the center of all audience interpretation of a specific artwork, and both artists and the audience share the classification of art based on how they express their feeling and their emotion and their thoughts. While the institutional theory, for my own understanding, it defines art just as the dictionary describes how language is being used by actual living human beings. It tells us the art what the words say it is.